Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest OTel Me. Super excited for those who are able to join, and for those who are not, we do have this recording available after the fact, both on LinkedIn and YouTube. My name is Adriana Vilela, and I am one of the maintainers of the OTel end user SIG, and I am happy to introduce my co-presenter today, Andrei.
Hi, everyone. And yeah, awesome to be here. My name is Andrei and I'm a fairly recent contributor to End User SIG. So yeah, I'm super excited to hear more from our guests today.
Yeah, and I think this is a perfect segue as we bring on our guests. And as we do, folks on the chat, please feel free to say where you're watching from.
Yeah, I can perhaps start. I'm joining from the Czech Republic, and in EU, and specifically in Brno. Adriana, what about you? Where I don't think you mentioned it. Have you?
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm in Toronto, Canada, so it's I guess 1 o'clock for me, and I guess it's evening for you, right? You're probably 7 o'clock in the evening.
That's correct.
Yeah, awesome. All right, I guess let's bring our guests on.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, so why don't you both introduce yourselves? Let's start with Tommy.
Okay. My name is Tommy. I'm an SRE here at Compass Digital, and my primary responsibility essentially is ensuring the reliability, scalability, and observability of our web platform. I work closely with the engineering team, product teams, test engineers to ensure that our systems are robust and we have actionable insights into what's going on within our services. So yeah, that's me.
And where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Cambridge, Ontario, in Canada.
Awesome. We're like practically neighbors, a few hours away from each other.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And then we have another Andrei today.
Hi, I'm out from Bonneville, Durham region, so same type of area. And for me, I've been in this industry for 11 years, but always been since I was a kid and into the tech stuff. So I work with Tommy on the same team, SRE at Compass Digital here, and very similar responsibilities across observability to on-call, PI, all that type of stuff for our systems.
Awesome. Well, we're super excited to have you both on. And just a reminder for folks watching, if you do have questions along the way, please feel free to post them on the chat. And also, we will be taking questions at the end if anyone has questions. So I guess let us get started. So I know you guys both talked a little bit about gave your intros. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your respective roles at Compass Digital in a little bit more detail.
Sounds good, Tom.
I'll start. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. I'll go first then. As I said, most of my role is primarily focused on ensuring the reliability and scalability of our systems. Very recently, or for the most part that I've been here, I've been working on one of our products. It's a company we actually bought over, it's eClub, to help get observability into what they are doing there. And largely, I work with things like AWS SDK, the CDKTF rather, and PagerDuty. We have observability backend, Dynatrace, where we send all our OpenTelemetry stuff to. So pretty much just SRE things. There's nothing too crazy happening on there. But I believe as we go along on this podcast, I'll get more nuanced into what I do and how architecture is structured and stack there.
Sounds good. And Andrei M, if you could elaborate a little bit on your role.
So when I started with Compass about 5 years now, I started off as a senior software engineer. So that's my background in software engineering, less so on the ops and infra side, but that's kind of been a new love with Terraform and those ecosystems. But primarily, it's been about the developer experience, the platform engineering aspect of it, and more recently, with the observability angle, it's been more about understanding the intricacies of our system that we weren't even aware about. And they'll tell us that link help potentially standardize across that and give us the insights with our platform and our vendor that we utilize that with. So just to give you some pretty cool things is like identifying any services that are looping into each other, for instance, via API rather than just like calling it internally with a function. So it's more about just like setting up these guardrails and looking into the optimization of our system. And the other aspect is because we are a microservice shop, it's been a challenge for us to get that context propagation and seeing all the services all together. And now we're able to kind of have that full aspect all together and actually run real, I guess, business impacts and analysis onto that. Yeah, that's primarily an area I've been looking at, more or less.
Cool. Folks, to start with, can you tell us a bit more about the system that you are operating? What is its architecture? What programming languages are used, and how it is deployed, and so on.
Okay.
So we have two products. So I'll talk about the one that I primarily focused on. So for us, our main infrastructure and architecture all runs like the 95% is all Lambdas. We have about 300 plus Lambdas in our ecosystem. We run hybrid of DynamoDB with Aurora RDS, and that's using Postgres. And we're slowly getting into Fargate services, so that's a little bit different model, but that's the primary architecture of our ecosystem. Standard services like S3, HTTP gateway, just standard service stuff that AWS ecosystem provides. Tommy?
Yeah. On the eClub side, what we have is a blend of Python and Django on the back end, and then JavaScript, TypeScript on the front end. And we run everything on that side on AWS ECS, which gives us staff flexibility and consistency across all our environment. Okay, thank you. So our CI/CD pipelines automate the process of building those Docker images and then deploying them onto ECS so we can roll out those changes quickly and safely. But to do a quick walkthrough across this little diagram that I have here. So imagine a user interacting with application. What they hit first is the load balancers that we have here, and then it distributes traffic to the web service that we have on the backend, which runs ECS and is instrumented with the OpenTelemetry SDK. Now, as this web services begin to process this request, what it does is to offload some heavy tasks or async tasks to this Celery worker down here, which also runs on ECS and is also instrumented with OpenTelemetry SDK. And thanks to the context propagation here, the trace context can flow seamlessly between the web service and the worker. And with the introduction of the OpenTelemetry SDK now, we can follow a request end-to-end from inception to the end, right? And both these services, that's the web service and the Celery worker, they emit traces, logs, and metrics. And we sample them, make sure they have high cardinality, and they are batched also for efficiency. And all this data that I'm talking about are sent to OpenTelemetry collectors that run as a sidecar on ECS to send this data to our observability backend. So this is pretty much in a nutshell what the architecture on the eClub side of what we're doing looks like.
Awesome. Thanks for that. As a follow-up question, given your system architecture, what were the top 3 problems that you were facing that kind of compelled you to go to say, hey, I need observability?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure and probably everyone listening knows that observability in a distributed system is never a solved problem. And some of the nuanced challenges that we faced was, again, as I said, distributed tracing. Um, with microservices, a single user request can touch so many services and background jobs. And without distributed tracing, it's almost impossible to reconstruct that full journey of a request from the user's end to the response back to the user, especially when something goes wrong, right? So, for instance, if a user says that they had a slow order placement, rather, we need to trace that request from the web front end, the back end, Celery workers, and even to third-party APIs. And the introduction of OpenTelemetry helps us stitch all these things together, right? And also have consistent context propagation across all these boundaries. And one of the things that we were also looking at was performance monitoring, because we rely on Celery heavily on a club for background processing. However, these things can be black boxes if you don't instrument them properly. So we need to know not just if a task has succeeded, but how long it took, what resources consumed, and whether it's causing bottlenecks along the way. So introducing Celery with, instrumenting Celery with OpenTelemetry required us to go, with out-of-the-box solutions. Again, thanks for that. And to be able to add custom spans and metrics to these things, and also error tracking. Errors can manifest in logs, traces, or metrics, wherever. And the most important thing for us at the time was to be able to correlate these things together. So that's having your trace ID and span ID in logs, and being able to look at that trace ID in the log and correlate it with an actual trace, right? So a spike in error log sometimes might correspond rather with a specific trace or a drop in a metric that probably we're tracking, right? So what we've done is we've worked to ensure that our telemetry includes enough context, like, as I said, the trace ID, the request ID, so we can pivot between the logs, the traces, and the metrics seamlessly. So yeah, that's what got us to where we are now.
Awesome. Andrei, do you have other Andrei? Do you have any anything else to add?
So for our end, I think the primary problem, again, really was that context propagation, because again, the microservice and distributed nature of that. I think the other part that we weren't even really aware about is just how the system really behaves. So a big part of it is tying back into alerting. So depending on what vendor you use, they might have automatic alerting, but being able to provide that to our developers, in our case, via Terraform. So developers can open up a PR, create their own alerts, and now we have that across our ecosystems. Has really changed a lot of how we're able to kind of empower the different developer teams to just take control of their own alerting and systems, rather than just one team kind of owning that.
Can you tell us a bit more about how are your systems instrumented? Like what types of instrumentation are you using?
Certainly. So on our platform, currently for us, we do use our vendor agent. So on our end, the agent's really nice for the most part. It works seamlessly with both of our infrastructure pieces. So for Lambda has the concept of a Lambda layer where you can basically put on something. So their agent just goes onto that, kind of bolts right on and works essentially right out of the box. And the second part to that we had to play around with a little bit was our ECS Fargate. There is a solution from AWS called AWS FireLens, which allows you to kind of have your task logs, standard error and standard out, to basically be sent to a specific sidecar, where then that sidecar will run something like FluentBit or I forget the other one, Qubit, and essentially take your logs and ship them to where you need them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I will ask a follow-up right away. So are you using OTel auto instrumentation, or are you manually instrumenting your services?
So for us, because we do have the 300 Lambdas, each one we basically have like a core library that all these Lambdas will all utilize, a very thin layer, but in there we do have OTel instrumentation for the Node.js. I believe it's just the auto instrumenter, or I think we might have changed that for the fine tune, because it needs to be small, because Lambdas, you want to keep them really tiny. So I think we do have the custom one where it's not the auto instrumenter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, how was your experience with doing that so far?
I haven't heard any issues, so I didn't do that one. That was actually our coworker Matt who did that one, but I didn't see any issues with that. PR went through pretty smoothly, and the primary purpose was we use our own custom logger, one that isn't supported by OTel or our vendor. So we had to use that to kind of pull in the trace ID from the headers and everything else, and be able to actually populate the spans that we require.
Cool.
So to clarify then, in a nutshell, you basically have like a wrapper around OTel from what it sounds like.
Kind of. It's I guess so. Yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
Cool. And question for you around just to keep on the instrumentation thread. Who is responsible for instrumenting?
Well, that's an interesting journey. So we actually do have a new project upcoming. So the way our system has kind of evolved with Terraform in particular is, we're IAC first for no matter what we do, infrastructure as code. And a big part of that is we use the Cloud Development Kit extension on Terraform. So it gives us the ability to kind of have this inheritance model and allows us to build these L1, L2 constructs. So if anyone's familiar with that, it's a very useful way of building abstractions for your infrastructure and enabling teams to kind of handle that as well. So in our case, what we're trying to build right now is kind of an L3 construct, which is like an application service level where we can give it to developers and they can essentially have all the nuts and bolts kind of already instrumented out of the box with the right permissions and the right access and the right agents and everything else. And we kind of support this golden path for them.
Awesome. Tommy, do you have anything else that you want to add?
No, not really. As I said, I think we're trying to get to a point where all of these things are, what I say, prepackaged for the devs to be able to use them, to leverage them to do their own instrumentation on their own. And I'd say for the most part, we are automating many of our collector setup or the OpenTelemetry setup. But I think at the beginning, what we did, especially on the eClub side, was to auto-instrument so we can have quick wins and move quickly. But when we're getting down to things like business logic, celery tasks and things that were unique to the eClub side, we manually created spans along some critical code paths and added some custom attributes here and there so we can get more than just what OpenTelemetry offers out of the box. So I think for eClub, it's just a little slightly different from what we have on the Centric side.
Nice. That's really cool because I think that's a path that a lot of organizations start with anyway. Like the auto instrumentation is that quick win, and then it's like, oh yeah, we're lacking a little bit more. Let's go with the manual instrumentation. That's awesome. We do have a question from someone in the audience, from Buddha. Hi, Buddha. Nice to have you join us. So Buddha asks, are you currently using all OTel signals, logs, metrics, traces, profiles, or a combination of them?
So we are using logs, metrics, and traces. So logs are coming through depending on which infrastructure piece. So if it's Fargate, it'll come through the AWS FireLens and Fluentbit solution, and then be sent to our to our vendor. Otherwise, if it's Lambda, it comes straight from the Lambda layer agent with the with the Lambda layer. And then for metrics, that comes in through a different connector with our vendor. They have a solution we install in our cloud environment, and then it kind of pulls all the metrics over to that. Now, profiles is interesting. We don't use profiles, but the use case I think for profiles is enabling maybe common attributes or standardization. And so we handle that through, again, our vendor has a solution out of the box that allows us to kind of set the schema and enrich our data as it gets ingested.
Great. And then another follow-up question from Buddha. And by the way, actually, before I ask that, there was a question from Manish, who's asking if we are recording the session. And yes, we are recording the session. So it should be available on LinkedIn and YouTube on demand after the fact. So great question. So the follow-up question from Buddha was this how you started or slowly built up to it? who would like to take that one on?
Was that one for like the Terraform aspect or just in general?
I'm assuming it was for the instrumentation in general, I would say.
Yeah, at least one for Tommy. Tommy had a fun time doing that.
Okay, well, this was not how we started. And for context, I joined about 10 months ago. And yeah, at the time I joined, we did not have OpenTelemetry set up anywhere, at least to the best of my knowledge. And I know that a couple of the motivations for adopting OpenTelemetry on our side was standardization. Because we had like a patchwork of monitoring tools like logs, metrics, everything scattered all over the place. But OpenTelemetry gave us a way to now unify all these and to reduce cognitive load and then the interaction overhead that comes with that. And additionally, we wanted to be vendor neutral. Using OpenTelemetry allows us not to be locked to a single vendor. So I'd say I know I'm getting into the motivations for why we adopted it, but it also cuts back into the fact that we did not start out that way. We slowly built into it, and these were some of the decisions that drove us to using OpenTelemetry. Yeah, I hope that answers this question.
I hope so as well. How long did it take you to get into the point where you are at currently?
I'd say we're still getting there, right? And if I remember correctly, we started somewhere around September. Andrei, keep me honest here. And I think by March we closed the chapter on that one. I wouldn't say from conceptualization, but I'll say from implementation to when we thought that we were in a good place. So roughly 7 months, right? Trying out stuff and yeah, I think we're in a good place now.
Alrighty. Yeah, we have a question in chat from Manish. When we talk of OpenTelemetry data, there is always a huge amount of data. How are you optimizing your storage and managing it?
Okay, I'll take this one a bit, and then I'll let Andrei finish off because he's the geek with that. One of the things we do is sampling, of course, and I know when we query for stuff, we do a sampling ratio of I think 1 to 1,000 for traces, at least on the eClub side. This is tuned in this way to balance cost, performance, and visibility. And of course, we monitor the effectiveness of this sampling setting and adjust it dynamically during incidents or specific services that require deeper analysis. And for logs, for querying, and most of the other things we do with logs, we enforce a scan limit of 500 gigabytes per query to keep the backend performant and cost effective. But I know again, Andrei geeks out on things like this, so I think he'll be able to give a better response.
Technically, we got a really big budget for our vendors, so we actually have zero sampling at the moment. So we grab it all. We're just trying to understand from that point and slim it down. And the first exercise that we kind of ran through was grab all the logs, kind of run like a pivot on it of like the error logs, do a count on just general logs, and are there any useless logs that are being constantly created by the system or just noise, and can we remove that? And the answer was yes. So I think we had something like 2 billion, 3 billion logs coming in that are just like success that we just didn't need to have in place for it. So yeah, we've been cleaning up the system a lot. We go through all our pods and kind of hand out tickets to them as we find through the investigation and be like, yeah, let's get rid of this, or make it a debug log potentially if you guys actually need it, enable it during your debug sessions. But otherwise, let's not try to have too much noise into our ecosystem. I will say, though, that one caveat is because we are running Lambda, that one agent and CloudWatch requires certain logs to come out. So we can't get away from a certain noise. Like right now, I think we're ingesting 54 million logs a day. We can't get away from, and they're just noise at the moment. So another motivation to move to Fargate, where we have a bit more control of our system as we adapt a bit more of the observability ecosystem.
Cool. Yeah, Manish, if you have any follow-ups, feel free to post them in chat. And I would continue with the next question about collectors. Can you folks tell us a bit about the way how you set up your collector or collectors? what is the distribution, and yeah, what is the architecture overall. Super curious about that.
Okay, well, I'll go again with the eClub side. And again, for context, as I said, I handle most of the eClub side. Andrei does the big stuff on Centric. And for eClub, what we do is try to make our collector environment aware. So in Sandbox, because what we have is Sandbox, staging, and production on eClub. So on Sandbox, we sample a little more aggressively to capture as much data as possible for debugging, especially for me, right, to really know what's going on there and also help the devs really debug stuff that they have going on there. But in production, what we do is a little more probabilistic. I hope I got that right. To balance visibility with cost, right? And what we do is we dynamically also adjust that sampling ratio. If there's an incident, and then we temporarily increase that to capture more data. And again, the collector definitely does all the batching, filtering, and exporting telemetry to the backend, our vendor. And of course, this is done in a YAML config to define our pipeline for traces, for metrics and log, and to also set the environment specific parameters like service name, the host type, and then all the OpenTelemetry options we want to set on that. So that's what we have for our collector on eClub. And as I said at the beginning, it runs as a sidecar to these services. That's Celery, the Django application also.
So as a follow-up on your collector setup, so do you have, so I guess two questions. Do you have a way to manage like a fleet of your, because it sounds like you have a number of collectors. Do you have a way to manage them effectively? Like, do you use OpAmp for that, or do you use like kind of a homegrown thing? And also, do you use like a collector gateway to like funnel all of your collectors into like a central gateway before pushing that off to your observability backend?
To be honest, not really. We just manage the fleet using ECS, as I said, and then we run them as sidecar to our standalone services, and the environment variables, as I said, help us customize those things I said earlier, which are the sampling rates, the exporter, and the service names. So we don't really manage the fleet independently or independent of our services. We just run them as a sidecar and let ECS do the rest for us. So I think that's pretty much it. But we also monitor the performance, right? Definitely. Things like the queue length, and then we have some drop spans along the way, so we can scale them horizontally if we do need to. But for high throughput services, like I can't remember the name now, one of our Celery, I think it's Celery Flower, right? We have, of course, a higher instance for that to manage the size and scale of how things can be and to avoid bottlenecks. So yeah.
So just to clarify, do all your sidecar collectors then, do each of them go directly to your backend?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. And it sounds like Andrei M had a screen share for us.
Yeah. So on our end, it's a visual, essentially the same idea that Tommy was walking through there. Before we get started, though, shout out to SkyDraw for anyone using that, the best platform for brainstorming ideas and a little whiteboard place. But essentially, the ECS Fargate, again, I was mentioning the AWS Firelines configuration. For us, the management of all of it comes back to Terraform. So that allows us to easily manage our collectors, because even the configurations, everything in code. So it makes that part a little bit easier, if that's what you're trying to prelude to. Our vendor does have that instance within our AWS account, but we don't utilize that, as we found that sometimes the logs are being dropped. Either we under-provisioned it, and we found that if we just directly send them straight to the vendor, there wasn't any issues that we've noticed, aside us losing some of the benefits of that additional collecting, if we have to do some data masking or dropping those logs prior to being sent and ingested by the vendor. So definitely a area we're trying to balance. But the other part is obviously the Lambda, which again is super straightforward. It's just straight from the Lambda and straight to the vendor again, without any additional pieces there. So that might be an area, now that we're talking here, area for improvement. Because if we have those 54 million logs that are just noise, we might benefit by going to that filtering agent first. So very useful.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. You already mentioned these like areas for improvement, and I'm wondering, do you have any challenges with OpenTelemetry currently, and anything that perhaps the project could do better to serve you as its user?
Well, I'll say for me, one of the biggest challenges was just the initial setup, right? Configuring the collector and ensuring context propagation across all the services, which required me to do, manual instrumentation. And of course, there's a learning curve. Telemetry is powerful. But again, the API surface is just so large, and of course, in terms of best practices, we are still evolving. One of the things that I'll probably like to see, and I think I'm speaking to the community when I say this, is maybe more complex example project. Speaking to myself too, of course, putting it out there. But I would say the community has been really helpful, right? There were so many things that I benefited from GitHub mainly, and then a bunch of articles that people have written on Medium, right? So for me, it's just more real world examples, more complex setups, like probably what we have. Maybe somebody just doing something that big and putting it out there for anybody to be able to use. But for me, that's just been the challenge. Nothing too crazy.
Mm-hmm. Andrei, what about you? Do you have anything in mind?
Not so much I can give feedback to really improve. I mean, the whole time has just been learning, right? There's just a lot. I mean, it's first exposure to it really for me. It's not even that I had experience with other observability tooling. It's just like straight to our vendor and then also OTel. So just learning the best of the best right off the bat, basically, right? And then learn the history. So for me, it's been a constant uphill battle to learn all the different intricacies. Probably just want to echo Tommy's message, just more examples, right? Being able to pull things down, play with it, getting into your hands really quickly. That's usually the best place to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we're OpenTelemetry has been around long enough now that I think many organizations are kind of past that 101 phase and are eager to get into like the more gnarly use cases. And that's why, we really appreciate folks like you jumping onto these OTel Me sessions, talking about like your mature OTel setups, because it really, really helps others in the community. So we definitely appreciate that. Switching gears a little bit, we were wondering if you have had any like interactions with the OTel community, things around, if you got stuck on a particular issue, like how did you go about it if you got stuck? Like, did you go on Slack, or did you like Google stuff? How did that work for you?
I remember the first thing, it was for eClub, when we were trying to instrument it originally. It was there's an extension we use for, is it parallel processing, Tommy? Do you remember that one? It's not WYSIWYG. There's another one. Because it's a Django app that we run, and the problem with that is that there's an extension we use. I think it optimizes performance, and the problem with that is that somehow it's fighting OTel. Yeah.
I really can't remember the name, but then I know they were fighting for the thread, the threading running in the background. I think that was one of the challenges that we had in the beginning. I really can't remember what specifically it was, but I know that was a big uphill battle back then.
Yeah, so we had an open, I think, issue on GitHub with that, but luckily our vendor was able to get their agent working, so it worked for that environment. But I think that issue is still open, but I wasn't sure if it was like upstream with Django or was it so much with OTel itself.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that. As a follow-up, have you gotten to the point where you have made any contributions to OTel, or are planning to make any contributions?
100%. Nothing yet in terms of contribution commit, but 100% we'll probably be looking at something within the ecosystem of probably Node or Go, one of those two.
Awesome. Final thing. So I think we've covered, I think, most of the base questions. We do have a cool audience question that came in from Esther. It says, how do you see OpenTelemetry evolving in your workflow over the next year? Really great question.
That is it's a tough question. So, well, because I mean, OpenTelemetry, I mean, it's more about, is it so much like the framework itself, or is it more about the data we're getting out of it? Because for me, I think the value, I mean, both are great, right? Because one gives us a standardized tooling and framework to be able to switch vendors or anything else, but we have the capability now. But for me, I think the real value comes into what type of data do we really pull out of that OpenTelemetry, and what can we really get from it? I think that's where the real value is. So being able to now take that data and apply user journeys and business events, like those things, I think are where our organization can really, I guess, expand or benefit from for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Tommy, do you have anything to
add? Not much, but I think just like OpenTelemetry will also keep maturing in our observability journey, especially around logs, and for complex setups like Celery or serverless, that's with Lambda, because I know there were also some battles fought there. I also think we are probably going to have more out-of-the-box integration and tools to simplify the configuration for our collector, right? So, I mean, the ecosystem is growing so fast, so I would not be surprised to see us adopting it a little bit more. As Andrei said, we are growing every day, we are learning every day, but I think we'll be leaning more towards probably much better or more standard industry practices when it comes to adopting OTel and using it to really observe our system. So that's what I see happening over the next year, but who knows? Time tell.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, we have more audience questions. Today we just talked over a DM with Adriana that we have really engaged audience. So that's amazing. So Manish is asking, how are you doing the instrumentation of legacy systems? Is anything like that happening? Do you have a use case for that?
I think we have some older .NET projects, but it seems as if our vendor at least supports it out of the box, and anything. I think we could, even with that solution, the vendor allows us to still have it in OTel format as it comes through. So not really a concern on our side from what I've seen so far.
Alrighty. And one more from Buddha. How do you report on business value metrics for decision makers? What metrics do you report on? Yeah, I know. I think, Tommy, you mentioned that for that business logic, you had to do some manual instrumentation. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, there were certain business logic that we needed to, especially on the Celery side, because that's where we offload stuff to really see how data was flowing through that, and then report on, I think specifically it was a reporting service, or I think an order service at the time. So what we got out of that really was just the rise and fall, or the spike of the orders process within a certain period or within a certain trace. But reporting back to business people, I think that one comes more out of the box with our vendor, and we, as Andrei said, build stuff that aggregates the amount of logs that we use, that translates into how much we pay for these things. Even though we have a big budget, we still don't want to end up overshooting that. But I think again, Andrei would have more context into this because he builds most of the stuff that I report back to business leaders, and that's something he's so in love with. So I would allow him to take the floor on that.
Yeah, so I think for me, the biggest one, at least it's been months in development, is the most important key metric I've come to love recently is users. So what is a single user doing across the system, and then aggregate that over a certain period of time. So that alone allowed us to find a particular leak where we had a single user, it was a bug in our client and within our service that wasn't like a batch request, where this one user within a short period of time was invoking over 200,000 requests into our system. And with Lambda as pay as you go, it's not a good model there. So without this observability in place, we wouldn't even know that there is one single user somehow invoking 200,000 requests within like a 6-hour period. So these types of small little things where now we can focus on a single user or aggregate it across a grouping and be able to find behaviors. And it's really good when you throw onto like a time series or flame graph, and you can see these kind of like fat spots where you can just visually identify something doesn't look good here, investigate.
Makes sense.
That's great. Thank you so much, both of you, Andrei and Tommy, for joining us, and thank you to my co-host, the other Andrei, for joining. And also, this is Andrei K's first time on a stream, so like big kudos. Awesome job as co-host. So I want to give a shout out. And as always, we appreciate all the stories that we hear from our community members showing how they use OpenTelemetry out in the wild. It really helps us, and it helps show folks in the community like, OpenTelemetry is here to stay. We've got some like gnarly use cases of it being used out in the wild, and it's great to hear those stories. Coming up next, stay tuned. We should have another OTel Me planned, I think, in July. So stay tuned on the OTel socials for that. In the meantime, coming up at the end of this month, we have OTel Community Day. It's part of Open Observability Con, so it's combined with OTel Community Day. So that's happening on the heels of Open Source Summit in Denver, Open Source Summit North America in Denver. So if you're around for Open Source Summit, check out OTel Community Day and Open Observability Con that are happening together. And I think we've got a couple of KubeCons also coming up. We've got, I want to say this week is KubeCon China. And then next week, I'm actually jetting off to Japan at the end of this week for KubeCon Japan. And it's the first KubeCon Japan, so very exciting stuff. So if anyone's around for KubeCon Japan, come say hello. Would love to meet you and talk OTel. And yeah, I think that is a wrap. And again, for those who attended, tell your friends if they missed it. The recording will be available both on LinkedIn, YouTube. Also, check out the OTel end user SIG. Also have a group on CNCF Slack. We are called, I think we're called OTel-SIG-end-user. So come share your stories on the OTel and user SIG chat. And also, if you'd love to join us for one of our meetings, we meet every 2 weeks. So I think our next one is next week. So yeah, thank you everyone once again for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for having us.